Hello friend, welcome to the Java puzzle. Today we are going to discuss about how we can implement the JWT in our Spring Boot application. This video is the continuation of this API validation security where we implement the role-based authorization. Basic authorization we see in this video. You can check out this clone repo, and if you have any issue how we implement that, you can check out this YouTube tutorial. So this is a continuation and second part of this video where we implement the Spring security using the JWT. So let's start it. So this is the project which I imported here. So I just show you this one, and let me run my program and show you the output of this. Just as it's a recap of the previous part. So if you want to skip this part, you can skip also. And who is new in this channel and want to see how the basic authorization is working, so that also can stay with us, and I will just show you what is a basic authentication and what we will see in the JWT. Okay, so now my program is running at 8080, and in the controller I just show you what we implemented here. So let me show you. In the controller we implemented one get mapping with the user which have authority to access by the admin. Then we implemented one get mapping with the user and in the user ID as a path variable, and they have authority of the editor and admin. And in the database I will show you this is the users and these are the roles, right? And these are the roles defined to the particular user. So we implemented that. If you don't know how we implemented that, you can go through the part 1 and check out that video. So I'll just show you. So here what is the API? It's a user, right? And user can be accessed by the admin. So API slash users. So go in the Postman, API slash users. Inside the basic auth I provided my username and password, which is admin. Savan is the admin. So let me send this. Okay, so users, it's not a user, it's a user, not a users. Let me check. Okay, our program is not run yet, that's why it's a issue showing. So let me run my program. Okay, now it's running, and let me open my Postman and hit the post here. I just need a get only. Okay, and send this. Users, sorry. Let me send this. Now I am able to access the API, this API, right? Let me try with the editor credential. So Divya, and Divya, the credential of this user is editor, and editor don't have access to this API. So let me send this, and you will see access is denied. Okay, and in the header section you will see there is a J session ID where this session ID is present there, and this basic authentication is there. And when I go back and Control Z with the Savan and Control Z with the Savan at 123, which is the username and password of the admin, when I will send this, I am able to access this API. When I select the no auth and again I'm sending the access this API, I don't have to send the username and password again. It's stored in the security context holder, which we discussed in the previous part. And I just want to show you the credential, which is, you will see here, the JSON ID, right? This JSON ID is stored, this authentication object, not only the JSON ID, authentication object is stored in the security context holder. Okay, and whenever we will visit the same API, we don't need to provide the credential there. So this is a basic authentication, right? And now we are going to implement the JWT. But why, when we have a basic authentication, then why we need the JWT? Like, as I show you in the authorization, when I select the basic auth, I have to provide my username and password in the header section, right? It will give me a basic auth and cookies. Inside the cookies, they provide me the JSON ID, whatever the authentication I provide them, right? So to now I'm just sending my password, which is a very important and secure things, right? And I don't want to pass my username and password combination on the server, on the client. I just want to send in a credential, in a encrypted way, right? And that facility is provided by the JWT. This is the website of JWT, jwt.io. Here you will see this is a JWT token, right? And JSON Web Tokens, it's a full form of JWT. And here you will see these are the differentiated with the three colors and with a dot. So first one, this one is a part of header, where we define that which type of token is this. This is a JWT, and which type of algorithm we are using, HS256, right? In the second thing, there is a payload, where our username will be there, our expiration time, when this token will be expired, that information will be there, right? In the third term, this is a verify signature, okay, where we will pass our base 64 encoded things is here, where other information will be stored in it. So this is a JWT. So we will go again with this encoded thing. When we create our JWT, right, that time we will again come with this website and show you our generated JWT, what type of data is showing here, right? So these are the algorithm, and currently we will focus on the HS256 in this tutorial. So let's start it. So let me minimize this and close all tab. Okay, now we have this project. I clone that. Okay, so first thing, to implement the JWT, we have to import the library of the JSON Web Token. So for this, we have a library named io.json web token, right? Let me import this. Okay, now it's imported. So next thing, what we have to do, we have to go inside the web security configuration, where we extend our web security configure adapter class and annotate it with enable web security and enable global method security and the configuration, right? So here we defined, go below and you will see here we defined our end matcher with the API and which type of authority we want to provide to particular API. That also we can do in this class, okay? Because we implemented the enable global method security, that's why we directly use has authority with the API, and we are able to leverage the advantage of pre-authorized annotation. Okay, so okay, now what we have to do, let me remove this all thing and we will write again in the term of JWT. So here what we have to do, in the basic authentication we just need to disable the CSRF token, right? And in the JWT we have to disable the CSRF and codes also, because the token will be sent over the header, right, with the header. So what I have to write here, I have to just write here the http dot course dot end dot csrf dot disable, right? We disable our course and CSRF here. Then what we have to do, we have to handle our exception, whatever the exception will be there, that we have to handle. So there is one more thing, is exception handling, and here we have to define, with the exception handling we have to define our entry point, right? Authentication entry point, where any exception will be happened or anything will be wrong there. So this entry point through the exception, like unauthorized access or anything, whatever you will pass there, that will show there. Okay, so we have to provide the entry point, right? So let me create one class here. Okay, and we will implement the authentication entry point in this class. So let me create one variable, private auth entry point JWT. Okay, and auth entry point, let me create it. So action class, and I want to create one package also, JWT, and add it there. Okay, now inside the JWT we have a auth entry point JWT. Okay, great. So just let me add my auth entry point. We will create later. Okay, we will extend the authentication entry point, then this issue will be resolved. So we will see later. So so after that, so you will see there in the basic authentication, when I pass my authentication, my credential I pass there, then it will save my details in the cookies, right? As a JSON ID, it's stored the cookies. But in the case of JWT, we don't need this property. So for this thing we have to provide the session management. Okay, and there we will define our policies. Okay, so first thing is a session. Let me add here dot and then dot session management, and here we have to define that session creation policy. Okay, and inside it we define that the policy should be stateless. So session policy stateless, right? Then dot and the enter, and then we will tell that our Spring security, like which type of API we want to permit, we want to authenticate, that thing we will do there. Okay, so here dot auth request dot and matcher, and here we will define like let's suppose in the controller we define like /API/user. So same thing, we will create one controller, auth controller, and we will define that there our generate the token API. So for this here and matcher, so what I will do, I will just add API/auth and ***. Okay, whatever we will be provide there, all we want to permit all. Okay, so after the permit all, this thing is now done. Now what we have to do, the rest of the API should be authenticated, right? So apart from this auth, we just provide any request dot authenticated, right? So this thing is done. Now what we have to do, there is one more thing we have to define. Now the important part is to create a filter, right? This is the main point of this tutorial, right? So we have to create one filter here. Okay, so let me create one more filter and let me auto add this first. Okay, so I auto add this. Now what we have to do, we have to provide the authentication token filter, right? So that filter we will just create a bean. So here public, let me create one class auth token filter. Okay, and then here we will just provide the authentication JWT token filter, right? And just return the object of this filter class. So auth token filter, right? Let me create this inside the JWT package. Just create. Okay, now we will go again with that implementation, but let me complete this. So authentication here, okay, authentication here. Now what we have to do, let me just copy it, and here what we have to do, we have to define our filter here. Okay, how we can define that? We will just call http dot add filter before, and here we will just pass this, right? Then inside it we have to define which type of filter is this. So what is the purpose of this filter? So the filter is username password authentication filter. This is coming from the Spring Security class, right? No issue with this error because we didn't implement right now, that's why it's showing the error. So we define that our filter, and we told our Spring Security like what type of filter is this, what is the purpose of this filter. Okay, now let's implement, let's complete our this entry point JWT class. Okay, so for this thing what we have to do, we have to implement, there is an interface is authentication entry point interface. When I implement it, it will ask me to implement some method which is the comments, right? Comments method we have to override, and inside it we have to just provide what they will do if anything will go wrong there. So just we have to provide the response dot send error. Okay, and here HTTP servlet, here you will see the first one is the 401 unauthorized, right? That we have to provide here, and just provide the message here, what message you want to show there. So error unauthorized access. Okay, so this entry point is done, it's nothing much, right? So you will see the error is resolved here. Now the time is to implement the filter. So let's go there, and inside the filter what we have to do, we have to extends, there is a once per request filter that we have to extend. Now it will ask me to implement some method, which is a do filter internal. I will just implement it. So inside it we will write our all the logics, right? So for this thing, what is the first thing? First thing, like in the HTTP servlet request, we provide the JWT token, okay, that we have to process here, right? So let me create one method outside of it. So this one is a private string parse JWT, okay, and provide the HTTP servlet request. Okay, then now we are going to process this. Okay, so which type of header request we will send in the header? It will like authorization, bearer, and there is a JWT token. Okay, so this is a format. So when we will ask we will call the request or get header inside it the authorization, then these data we will receive from the request. So, okay, so let me do that. So firstly, string dot header auth is equal to request dot get header, and inside it I'm just passing the authorization. When I pass this, so now in the header auth I have a bearer JWT token. Okay, now the second thing what I have to do, I have to read off this bearer word. Okay, we just need only the JWT token and we will return that. Okay, this is the purpose of this JWT method, parse JWT method. So for this thing what we have to do, there is a string, and string util is the library from the Spring framework, so we will use that. So Spring utils dot has text, okay, has text, and we will provide the header auth. It should be some value, that's why we use that. If you will see the has text what it is doing, so okay, it's not some issue. So now after that what we have to do, we have to find out like this bearer is present in the token or not, and it should be present in the starting, right, not in anywhere. So for this thing what we have to do, we have to use header dot start with, right? This is the method of the string start with, and here we will just use bearer and one space, right? Here you will see bearer and one space is there between the JWT token and the bearer word, right? So if this is satisfied, then what we will do, we will, if you will count that this bearer is a 6 length of the word, and with the space it's a 7, right? So what we will do, we will just return header auth dot substring, and here we will pass the 7 and header auth dot length. So what it will return me, it will return me the JWT token only, okay, otherwise we will just return the null. We don't need anything there. Okay, so we just pass our JWT token, and whatever we will provide in the header, we just rid of everything. We just need the JWT token, so we just return that JWT token. So I'm clear, I think, till now, right? So here just let me create one variable and parse JWT and provide the request here. So now I have a JWT here, JWT token. Okay, now here what I will do, I will just create one more class JWT util, okay, and in the JWT util we will define how we will validate, how we will generate the token. These two methods we will provide in that particular class. So let me create first. So private JWT utils. Okay, JWT utils. Let me auto wire this. Okay, and here let me create a class also in the JWT is fine. We created here. Okay, now what we will do, we will create this class later. Okay, means implementation we will do later. So let me focus on this. Okay, so we have a JWT util where we will validate. There is a method for the validate the JWT token, okay, which return the boolean type of value. It's correct, then it will return the true, otherwise it will return the false. So here, if JWT is not equal to null, and we will authenticate, right? So JWT util dot let me create one method validate JWT token, right, and pass the JWT. Okay, let me create this method. It's a method boolean, right? Okay, great. So after that, if JWT token is the proper token which we receive is a proper token authentic, so now we will going to find the username from the JWT token. So for this thing we create one variable user name, and here we have to provide, okay, here one I have to auto wire my custom user detail service also here. So private my custom user details service. Okay, if you're not aware about what is the my custom user detail service, so please go through the previous part 1 of this tutorial, okay, where you will be see the implementation and what is the this service is provided, like load user by username. Okay, so you will be seeing the part 1 of this video. Okay, so now we have a user detail service. Now let's start. So let me create a variable user name, and here what we will call here, we will create one method, right, one more method in the JWT token. Sorry, JWT util. Inside the JWT util we will create one more method, get user name from JWT token, right, and here we will pass the JWT. Okay, these two methods, first one is a validate JWT token, and second one is a get username from the JWT token. This one also we will implement in this class. Okay, so after, now we have a username also. So what we have to do, we implement this my customer user detail service, and now so here username, and now we have a username here. What we will do here, we will just firstly we will get the user details from this user details service. So for this thing what we have to do, let me create one object of the user details, right? User details is equal to user details service dot load by username, and pass the username here, right? It return the details of the user now here. Okay, here by this username I'm able to access the other details of the user, okay, like their authority which we need here, right? Because we are going to implement the role based, so we need the authority also, we need the username, so other things we need here. So for this thing what we have to firstly, after taking the user details, we have to create a object of username password authentication token, which is provided by the JWT. So here you will see the username password authentication token, right? Let me create the authentication token. Okay, and is equal to new username token, and let me enter here. Okay, so you will see the screen. So firstly I will just pass the user details. Okay, then the second thing is a credential. Principal we already provided, right? Now we have to provide the credentials. So currently we don't need anything here for the credential, so null. Then here we have to provide the authority, right? And these authority where I will get it from the user details, right? So user detail dot get authority. Now I have a user detail authority and we pass all the parameter here. So let me just semicolon it, and now we have a object of user name password authentication token. And what we will do, we will just set this value, right? So for this thing, this authentication token dot set details, right? In the set detail we will just provide here the object of web authentication detail source, right? So for this, new web authentication detail source, okay, dot builder, I think build details, yeah, build details. And inside the build details we have to provide the request, okay, whatever the request is there. So this one is done. We set our details here, okay. Then after setting the details, now what we have to do, we have to save this authentication, which is the authentication object. This authentication token is the authentication object. We have to set inside the security context holder, okay. So for this thing, security context holder dot get context dot set authentication and pass the authentication token here. So we save this, right? We save our authentication object in this filter. We just save our authentication object in the security context holder. So because it can throw the exception, so let me surround it with the try and catch. So okay, and catch, and here just provide the exception a, okay, and here I'm just printing the error here, okay. What type of error I can provide here? Cannot set user authentication, right? And here we just provide the e dot to string, okay. Now try catch is done. Now this is a filter, right? So we have to, at the last, if you are working on the servlet, you have a knowledge of the servlet where we implement the filters, right? So you know that we have to set our do filter with the request and response. Whatever the request, whatever the response we generated, that we have to define here, right? So this filter chain dot do filter, and here we just provide the request and we will just provide the response, okay. Now our filter is done. Now the next thing is to implement our JWT. So in the JWT util, not a JWT, let me also annotate it with the component, right? And inside the validate JWT token and get username from the JWT token, right? And there is a one more method we will create, validate and get username. Generate JWT token also we will provide there, which we will we will use in the controller. So in the JWT we need two things. First one is a JWT secret and second one is the expiration, right? When it will be expired, that we will provide here. Okay, so before implementing this validate JWT token and get username from the JWT token, let me create one method here. Okay, private JWS claims, right? And claim JWS get claims. Okay, and here we just use here JWTS dot parser dot set signing key, and inside the signing key we will just provide the JWT secret. Okay, then here one more thing, let me provide here string JWT token. Okay, then set enter here and dot here parse claim JWS. Okay, and pass the JWT token. Okay, now return this. Okay, and let me add inside the try and catch, which will be more beneficial, and catch exception E and just return the null, right? So now we are able to get the claim. So now it's easy to implement the validate JWT token and get username from the JWT token. Okay, so for this thing, firstly what we have to do, return null. Okay, so in the validate firstly let me implement this validate JWT token. So for this thing, what we have to do, we have to just call this method. Okay, and just check if get claims JWT is equal to null, then we will just return true. Okay, true, otherwise we will return the false. Okay, so this is a validate JWT token. Now we have to implement the get username from the JWT token. So what we will have to do here, we have to just return get claims JWT dot, here we have to provide the get body and get subject, right? So now we will retrieve our username from the JWT token. Okay, now this two is implemented. Now the next thing is to implement the controller. So in the controller we have to generate a token also. Okay, so for this thing let me create one more method which we are going to implement in the controller, which is a generate JWT token. So for this thing, public string generate JWT token, right? And inside it we will just provide the object of authentication, right? So authentication, which is part of the security core, string security core, authentication, and inside it So here what we have to do, we have to get the details of user to generate the token. So that details is coming from the authentication, and in the authentication there is a principle, right? In the principle, it contains the value of the user. What property is contained, it's under the principle, right? So let me create the my custom user details service. User details service is equal to new, not new, just going to authenticate dot get principal. So you will see there is a get detail, get authority, get credential, and get principal. So this one is a get principal. Let me cast this with my custom details authentication. Then let me return this JWTS, right? JWTS dot builder. So builder dot compact, right? Compact. And here in the compact, what we have to do, we have to provide our subject, when it will be issued, when it will be the expired. Okay, all these things we will add here. So for this thing, so dot set firstly subject. So what will be the subject? Subject is our username, and that username is coming from the user details service, right? So get sorry, it should not be details service, it should be my custom user details, right? So this one also, and this one also. Now let me import this. Okay, now it's correct. Okay, just remove that. So user details dot get username. Okay, because details is present in the user details, right? If you will be see inside it, so you will see there is a username, password, account not expired, not authority. So all these things are present in the my custom user details, right? Not a user detail service. So just keep in mind this thing. Okay, so after that we set our subject. Okay, now the next thing is to set the issue at, when it will be issued, so that will be the current date. So set issue at, so this would be the new date. Then we have to set the when it will be expired, right? So set expiration, and here what we have to do, we have to new date, and inside the date need one more time, new date dot get time. So this get time is present, it will return as a current date in a millisecond, right? Then plus just use JWT expiration. Space the plus and JWT expiration, right? So we set our expiration here. Now the last thing, we will tell our JWT which type of algorithm we want to use, that we have to provide here. So for this, sign with. Okay, here we have to provide the algorithm. So algorithm is currently we see that HS512, so we are also going to use 512. Okay, and here we will just pass our JWT secret, right? Now our all three methods are done, and these two methods are already implemented. Now time to implement this generate token, right? So let me create a controller here, class and auth controller, right? Auth controller provide is a rest. Now let's implement the auth controller here. Let me create one two DTO. Okay, our request and our response DTO. So here. So DTO dot login request. Okay, inside the login request, what type of request we will send here? We just want to send the username and password. So private string user name, private string password, right? It's only two things. So add the data here, at the all are constructor, at the no are constructor. Okay, done. Now in the DTO, let me create the response also. So JWT response. Okay, and here provide the data, then provide the all are all are constructor, no are constructor, then provide the which type of response we need here. So private string, first one is a token, then another thing is a username we want, right? So use the username. Then other thing, we want to see the which type of roles is there. So private list of string and roles, right? These three things we want to put down there. Okay, so let's move to the controller part. Inside the controller, so create one mapping, post mapping. Okay, and inside the post mapping, it should be a token. Okay, so API would be API slash auth slash token, right? So okay, now here public response entity, and just present the object and type of object. So authenticate user, right? And here, because in this tutorial we already implement the validation also, we implemented, right? If you are not aware about the validation, how to implement the validation, you can also see my previous video. I will paste the link in the description. You just go through that and check that how to implement the global exception, custom exception, and validation, right? We can implement there. And I also cover how you can create a custom annotation with the database. Okay, that also you should know about that, and you can check out that video also. Okay, that is a separate video. So so here firstly I'll just use the valid, right? Then request body. If you're not implemented the validation, so you don't need to implement this valid annotation. You can use only the request body. Okay, because in this tutorial we already implement the validation, that's why I'm using the valid annotation. Okay, so login request, and here now what we have to do, we have to authenticate this username and the password we want to authenticate, right? So for this thing, what we have to do, we have to provide here the username and password here. Okay, so whatever the username is, we are enter there, that we will authenticate, right? Username and password. So for this thing, as you know that in the this method, in the generate token, we are going to pass this authentication object. So we have to create an authentication object first, right? So let me auto wire the two class here. First one is auto wire. So first one is the authentication manager. Okay, authentication manager, not entry point, sorry. Authentication manager. Okay, and authentication manager. Then second thing is the JWT util, because we are going to call that method, right? So auto wired and JWT utils. Okay. Okay, now we are good to implement this. So for the first thing, we have to create a authentication object so we can provide in the JWT method. So authentication, let me import this authentication from the Spring. So just see that this is a security code and OpenSSL. So you just focus on this Spring security code till now, right? So authentication of the object. Then here, how we will get this authentication? We will get this authentication of the object from the authentication manager, where we will pass our username and password. So authentication manager dot authenticate, here you will see it's needed a object of authentication, right? So how we will pass this authentication of object to get the authentication of the object, right? It's a little bit confused. No need to confuse here, because in the Spring security we have a username password authentication token. That object we will return, we will pass here, right? So for this thing, let me remove this and press the enter. Okay, new username password authentication token. Okay, and inside it we are going to pass our username and password, right? So login request dot get firstly username, then the second parameter is the login request dot get password, right? Let me enter this one also. Okay, so just let me simple it. So now we have a authentication of the object. Now we just want to generate the token. So for this thing, create the object JWT token, or we can say generated token, right? Generated token is equal to JWT util dot generate token, pass the authentication object, right? So after creating this, what we have to do, we have to get the principal from this from this authentication object, so we can return this. Now we have a generated a token, okay, but if you will see in the JWT response, we want to send the username, we want to send the roles, okay, with the token. So that also we have to do. So for this thing, what we have to do, we have to create an object of my custom user details, okay, and here authentication dot get principal, okay, and authenticated it, cast it with my user details. Okay, now by this object we have all the details, but before moving that, because the role is a present, we have to return in the list. So let me create one object list of string roles, okay, and let me import this. Okay, now what we have to do here, so user details dot get authority, so you will see it will return the collections of the object of the granted authority, right? So here dot stream dot here we have to map, right? Map item dot get authority one by one, and then what we have to do, we have to just collect all these details in the list. Right now we have a role, we have a user details, we have a generated token. So just we have to return the response entity dot ok dot body, and inside the body just provide the new JWT token, and here we will first parameter is a JWT token, generated token. Okay, and second thing is a username, so user details dot get username. Then the third thing is a roles, right? Now our all the things are done. Now we are good to run our program and see how this JWT is work. So let me run the program. Okay, it's showing the error. Okay, let me open this auth entry point JWT. Okay, we have to provide the component. Okay, now let me run again. Okay, authentication manager is also there, so go inside the Spring this web security configuration class, and here we have to provide this which one is implemented, configure authentication manager builder. Right now we have to create one bean also right here, so let me create a one bean. Okay, so this one would be the authentication manager bean. So the authentication manager bean, so you will see this one, right? With this override and add the bean also. So inside it the super dot is fine. Okay, let me run the program again. So now our server is running on 8088. So here we are going to use this token and pass the username and password here. Let me send this. This is the token, JWT token, and let me copy this. Now let me try to fetch this and send. So now we are able to access this. Okay, so now let me try with the Divya and Divya 23, generate it. Now it's an editor, right? And the API is, this API is only accessible with the admin. So if I will paste here and send it, you will see access is denied. So now you see how you can implement the JWT in your package, in your project, right? So if you have any question regarding this, just let me know in the comment section. Thank you.